What's good, everybody? It's Robo back with another video, and today I'm bringing you the end of regular season update to my 2025 NBA Draft Big Board. I'll be showcasing mainly the top 60 as well as a list of honorable mentions at the start. Obviously, the entire list is fluid and March could shake a ton of stuff up, but this is where I stand on the class as of today with updated statistics and scouting. But that's all I have for the intro, so let's go ahead and get started with the video. Before we get into the list, here's my honorable mentions. These are guys that I do not currently have in my top 60, but I absolutely see as draftable talents or close to it if they were to declare. This isn't in a well thought out order, and a lot of the younger guys in this list, especially like Alex Condon and Cannon Catchings, I expect to return to school. But if they do declare, they'll shoot up on the draft board, maybe even into the first round. Let me know your thoughts if there's anyone here you think deserves a spot in that top 60. I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts on these guys, or even the players off the list. But with that said, let's go ahead and get started with the top 60, starting at number 1. Cooper Flagg, of course, comes in at number 1 again. He's continued his elite play and put himself squarely in the National Player of the Year conversation. He's still a younger 18-year-old kid and is averaging nearly 20 points a game on the season while being an incredible defensive presence for the Blue Devils. The shot making has jumped in recent weeks as his splits are super impressive now, and we've seen the athleticism and IQ on display all year. The handle and continued shot consistency is what could separate him into a superstar level player at some point in his career, and at his age, there's plenty of time for growth there.
Flagg on the drive, the turnaround. Tough. Flagg on the attack, on the slam. Back to Flagg. Flagg on the attack.
That's going to be a shot. Flagg inside the cup.
Dylan Harper's still my number 2 prospect. Harper continued to dominate for this Rutgers team every night. He's got a rare blend of scoring, playmaking, and size at the lead guard spot that make him really unguardable. He can get to the rim with ease, has a strong handle and good burst to help him do so, and a jumper has come along into being a strength point of his. His skill set's often compared to guys like Cade Cunningham or a bigger Jalen Brunson, and you can really see it watching him play. I definitely see the potential of a future All-NBA level guard with him, even with Rutgers struggling as much as they did this season.
See if they can open up the floor. Wow, look at this. Harper!
Dylan! Top 10 of the conference in assists. Harper splitting the defense.
Scoring ones. There's Harper. Students counting it down. He got right to the basket.
VJ Edgecombe wasn't much of a scorer for Baylor early on, using his elite athleticism to get easy looks rather than being a big part of their offense. But the last month or so, he's taken a major leap as a scoring guard, taking guys off the dribble and creating his own offense. As we've seen during this stretch as well, I think he projects to be at least a decent shooter and a great two-way player at the next level. He shot the 3 well in high school, and it started to translate to the college game, and the main attraction with VJ is still the athleticism and defensive ability regardless. He's averaging 2 steals a game and has some huge highlight blocks, making him a really valuable player at the next level before the complete offensive game has even developed.
Breakaway. Rob Ryan is back.
Key freshman and sped up. Edgecombe bullies his way to the
Ace Bailey is still a really divisive prospect. Some love his game and see him as a top 2 player in this class, while others still see his downsides as clear red flags, making him not worth a high lottery pick. I was torn on him for a while, but at this point, the shot making has been at a level you can't really ignore, and I think his shot creation has taken a bit of a leap compared to the early season, and the athleticism of his size is enough to put him in my top 4 still. His size and length make him a strong upside prospect on defense. He can rim protect like a big while having the tools to guard on the perimeter. The nitpicking comes from the shot selection and lack of separation and creation for others. And his advanced numbers don't look great either, but there's a ton of time for growth in this game. And like I said, the shot selection really at this point is what it is.
Here's Bailey again. Knifing inside. Bailey to the rim.
Kaman Malawach is definitely a raw offensive prospect and still hasn't been a big part of Duke's offense, but he's continued to dominate in his role as a setup scorer and put-back big man, shooting nearly 70% from the floor and knocking down the occasional jumper. However, from what we've seen prior to Duke as well as in the moments, Malawach can be more than just a role player in the dunker spot. He's got some potential as a shooter, and he's an excellent screener in the pick and roll, and an underrated connector as well. And on defense is where he shines, despite a lower block total. On tape, he's super disruptive and tough to score over in the paint, especially because of that 7'6" reach advantage he's got.
Duke defense because their help side is so good. The nipple to Malawach.
6'6", big, strong.
Trey Johnson's another bigger guard prospect, but definitely more of a scoring guard than a creator. He's pretty reliant on the jumper to score as he's lacking a bit in burst and explosiveness, but the shooting and touch in the mid-range is such a strong area of his game. He's established himself as a top 5 or 6 guy in this class, and one of the best scorers in the entire country. As the season wraps up, he's over 40% from deep, still taking 6 threes a game, and his free throw percentage is excellent as well. Trey can defend on ball well enough at 18 to suggest he'll be a plus on that side as well, and he's got good size for a secondary guard at the next level, which helps make up for the lack of playmaking he's shown so far.
Johnson.
Great find.
turnover. And again, we talk about controlling the game offensively.
5.
Johnson, step back three, of course.
Kasparas Yakuchonis had an incredible start to the year, becoming a potential top 3 pick by midseason, but some turnover issues and slight efficiency drop-off had him slip down a few spots for me. He's still such a fun player to watch though, and has all the tools a guard needs to succeed in the NBA. He's a very confident player who gets flashy at times, both with his passes and his shot selection, and he's got great size for a lead guard, listed at 6'6", 200. His scoring bag is super deep as well, being able to create and knock down shots from all 3 levels, which combined with his playmaking ability has made him a top 10 lock for me at this point.
Oh, look at that man.
Oh, okay.
Between the legs. Sensational. He's from Canada.
Derek Queen has had a really strong second half of the season for Maryland, becoming a dynamic scorer and all-around offensive big man game in and game out. And despite some split opinions, I really like him as a prospect. He's got a great touch around the basket, a ton of strength on his bigger frame, and some pretty advanced IQ as a playmaker out of the post. The type of moves he pulls off to get good looks is what causes the baby Jokic comparisons, and you can probably see it just from his highlights. Defense can be seen as a question mark for sure, especially with the weight concerns, but his mobility is not affected much by his weight, and the touch in the mid-range and near the rim is really strong, separating him from most other big men in this class in my opinion.
Lead, then it evaporated, but they're working towards that again. Rice!
Asa Newell's an athletic stretch big prospect who all season long has thrived in the dunker spot, as he's always in easy scoring situations as he's around the rim. And so far at Georgia, he's had some great games displaying his freakish athletic traits across the board. He's 6'11" and fluid as a wing on both ends of the floor, has shown a solid jumper, and defensively he can switch and run on the floor in transition. He didn't start the year shooting well, but he had some better shooting nights throughout the year and has been solid at the line, which just makes his athleticism, size, and aggression even more enticing for NBA teams to consider with a lottery selection this draft cycle.
Godfrey will get it to Newell. He'll shoot for 3. Into another 3. Newell fights for the rebound.
Takes it on Gray!
Asa Newell, he is so unselfish, but when he goes to the bucket, he will...
Colin Murray Boyles has been one of the best players in the country this season. Last year he shot up draft boards as a freshman, but chose to return to school and refine his game more to improve his draft stock. And that was a great decision, as a 6'7" big man has done exactly that. He's still more of a non-shooter right now, but he could continue to grow in that area. And even without that, he impacts the game in so many ways on both ends and dominates in the post. He uses his strength to his advantage and is really crafty with the ball and has taken a real leap as a playmaker despite that assist total not really showing it. He creates good looks for both himself and others and has succeeded even being the focal point of an opposing defense all season long, while being an absolute force on the other end of the floor at the same time.
Oklahoma, the Sooners get another chance.
Jeremiah Fears has been one of the best young guards in all of college basketball and skyrocketed on our draft boards this year. He went through a pretty rough patch a while ago, but has began putting his stock back to where it previously was with some huge gains to end the year. His speed and quickness are on a different level than most college guards, and he's got a knack for drawing fouls and hitting tough shots, which shows the clutch gene. The drawback is still a consistency with the jumper, but again, he's so young, so there's a ton of time for growth, and he's had some heaters this year. Turnovers are another rough spot, but he's got a strong handle to lessen some of those concerns in the future, and I think with his size and speed, he projects to be a really fun type of player, similar to a guy like Jaden Ivey.
Fears on the drive, cut off, steps back to...
He's got to get it off quick. He does.
Liam McNeely is one of those prospects who's seen as a high floor, lower ceiling guy who can be an early plug and play in a rotation. And that may be true, but there's still a lot of value in a guy like that, as he's a primary shooter and a high IQ wing. He's played his role really well as a freshman for UConn, and he even had some huge scoring nights, including a 37-point performance earlier this season. The overall field goal percentage isn't too great, but we know him as a consistent shooter who can create some looks for himself as well as score off the ball. As a shooter, he's got a quick and smooth release, fits into the NBA as an off-ball movement shooter, and a highly efficient one as well, with a low turnover rate and connectability on the wing.
Weave, it's McNeely with a lane. McNeely wants it. How about that? He's got it.
Jace Richardson has shot himself into serious lottery pick conversations with a second-half breakout, putting up some huge scoring nights on high efficiency on a pretty consistent basis now. He's one of the bigger reasons Michigan State has become the serious title threat as of late. His splits have taken a slight hit since the last big board I did, but are still in a really strong spot. And we've seen some advanced passing flashes, and he's pretty athletic, making up for his fairly average size for a point guard at 6'3". Teams don't have to question the low usage rate anymore either. It's become a go-to guy at MSU now. And a breakout at this level of efficiency at the guard spot this early on in the process should have tons of teams in the mid to late lottery really excited about potentially drafting him.
Step back. Richardson. Look at the run out. Nice pass. Richardson.
Con Knippel is a high-level shooting wing prospect and has come along as the season progressed for Duke as one of the premier scorers on the team, consistently scoring 15 to 20 points a night the past few weeks, knocking down a few threes a game in the process, and showing some more scoring versatility along the way. The defensive side of the ball hasn't been a big issue at the college level, but there's some clear limitations there, I think. However, the shot making and playmaking are what make him a strong prospect, and there's little to no doubt about those abilities translating.
Tipped around and Knipple gets it back. Puts it up. Knipple for three.
Foster for flag. There's an extra pass. Knipple again. What they run on the offensive end. Knipple into traffic.
Thomas Sorber suffered an injury a couple weeks ago and was ruled out for the season for Georgetown, but I think we saw more than enough with him to believe he's still worth a first-round pick, and potentially even a lottery one. He's an all-around big who impacted the college game in several ways at just 18, as a scorer, passer, rebounder, and defender, producing in every instance. He can stretch the floor as well, but he struggled with efficiency, and the shot definitely needs improvement. But even without that, Sorber does provide so much value as a defender and all-around paint player. Having the strength and interior skill set with the basketball that he has at just 18 has a lot of scouts really excited about his potential.
I would not be surprised if he gets a bucket.
Sorber.
Noah Senge is another tall French wing prospect with some questions on the jumper, but enough size and fluidness to warrant some lottery love. As of right now, the shot isn't coming around this season, but he looks comfortable shooting the ball still and has found ways to score fairly efficiently regardless. He's also an incredible foul drawer and gets to the line pretty consistently for easy points. And overall, he's putting up about 10 a game as an 18-year-old playing in Germany's top league. With his frame on the wing, I can see a lot of the teams loving him, but without elite athleticism, the shot will have to be a part of his game at some point. But the player he is right now still looks valuable enough for a mid-first round grade to me, considering he's got a good motor, decent athleticism, and is a quality connector who still projects to be a solid shooter in the coming years. There was no bigger draft loser midseason than Nolan Traore, but lately his play has stepped up a pretty fair amount, recovering his stock a bit back into lotto consideration for me. I still don't think he's quite there yet, and especially not near his original potential as a top 5 pick. But his level of play lately has been good enough to move back into the middle of the first on my board right now. He's a 6'4" lead guard who's found a bit more efficiency as a scorer lately while still dishing about 5 assists a night. It could still be another future star Frenchman in the NBA as the early hype was there for a reason. The playmaking and quickness still shines. We just need to see better shot making out of him, so the translation makes more sense to be a lottery level guard prospect. Rasheer Fleming's performance this season has shot him into legitimate lottery contention for me. All year, he's been one of the most productive players in the country, and he's doing so with a ton of versatility. With Fleming, the athleticism of shooting is not all you get. He's shown creation flashes and elite defensive tools and instincts at the mid-major level, using his size and length to his advantage to just outmatch opponents on both ends and take over games for St. Joseph's. And despite the lesser level of competition, his traits look super translatable for the NBA game. If the jumper continues to look as strong as it has this season, I definitely see him being a first-round pick and future contributor to the league for sure.
Two huge mismatches.
Second behind David Dixon. Fleming.
Igor Demon still remains in the same area I had him last big board. He shot up draft boards early with a red-hot start to the season, putting the country on notice with a super efficient shooting display on top of his high-level creation skill for a 6'8" guard. But a huge slump with the increase in level of competition caused his draft stock to take a pretty big hit. I do think the early hype was definitely premature, and seeing now the drop-off in production and conference play, Igor has a lot of room for improvement as a prospect. I still think his playmaking, handle, and fluidness at 6'8" is more than enough to consider him a first-round worthy prospect because of that potential, but the weaknesses of explosion and consistency are definitely holding him back from being the elite prospect some thought he was early on. Ben Serif is one of the most consistent players in this draft and has a huge plus with his age as he's still just 18. He's a 6'5" guard from Israel playing in Germany and has done a great job as an all-around point guard, scoring primarily at the rim and in the mid-range, using a great handle and change of pace to get to his spots and make quality shots. The downside is the obvious lack of explosiveness in his game and a fairly low three-point percentage, but the advantages he creates for a team with his playmaking, size, and ability with the basketball definitely offsets that and make him a strong first-round pick. And if that jumper eventually comes around, a potential high-impact player fairly early on in his career. Noah Penna is another guy I've seen mixed opinions on, and I tend to keep sliding him up my board the more I watch him play. I'd say he's a consensus top 30 guy in his class now, but some still have him as a lottery pick. Still not fully there yet with him personally, but I do like him here. He's got a good shot despite a lower percentage. He's a strong defender with a great frame at 6'8", 225 on the wing, and seems to have good instincts on the floor. The reason I'm still not completely sold on him enough yet, though, is because I don't fully see a ton of scoring potential outside of occasional off-ball looks and easy buckets, as he's not a great athlete. But he's versatile enough as a player for NBA teams to be really interested in him as a future plus defensive floor spacer on the wing.
He's really been one of the stars of the show today. 14 points for Diawara.
Carter Bryant is someone I had pegged as a late-season draft riser, and he proved me right as well as many other people, shooting well into first-round consideration with a big second half for Arizona. His minutes and role saw elite because of his consistent disruption on the defensive end and ability to knock down shots in timely moments to prove himself capable of contributing as a freshman. And as time goes on in the league, I think we'll see Carter turn into a really well-rounded player. He can give any team smart, high-energy minutes, and the jumper looks strong enough to be a reliant scorer in the future on the wing, where he's got great positional size at 6'8", 220. along with the obvious flashes of playmaking on and off the ball.
Jihad's been active on both ends.
Tough shot.
Danny Wolf is still one of my personal favorites in this draft class, but his standing has dipped a bit in the past couple weeks compared to where I was at on him earlier. His efficiency and overall effectiveness have been limited lately, and the free throw struggles still point to some of the shooting woes we expected in his game this season. But still, 7-footers with his skill set are so rare, and he's continued to be an advanced playmaker for Michigan while leading around the glass with a near double-digit rebounder. He can put the ball on the floor and isolate to get buckets, and off the ball, he's got range as a popper. He's shooting 35% from 3 still. However, turnovers are again a huge issue with him, as well as the long-term defensive ability, as he'll be forced to guard some of the best athletes in the world at the next level, where he just doesn't seem to really be strong enough in that area, in my opinion. Miles Byrd can bring a ton of value to an NBA team due to his 3-and-D nature, and there was a point I even considered him potentially a lottery pick this season, but his shooting splits have fallen down a bit after a cold stretch, and he's now under 40% on the season and barely above 30 from deep. But we do know the shot is there, and a lot of people really buy him as a shooter long term. But the big draw here is the 3 stocks a game and crazy athleticism as a 6'7" wing. And what makes him stand out from some other 3-and-D guys that size is his ability with the ball. He can put the ball on the floor and create his own offense, and a sophomore has shown enough confidence in knocking down shots paired with the freak defensive ability. I would expect several NBA teams to have first-round interest in Miles, even with the drop-off in his shooting efficiency. Cam Jones was one of my hidden gems in last year's draft class. Had he declared, I would have considered him in the late first-round range, but he opted to return to school, and I definitely think it was the right move, as his performance this season is stepping up as a playmaker has definitely helped the stock tremendously. We obviously know he can get buckets at will at the college level, but now over 6 assists a night make him much more intriguing for NBA teams to evaluate. And again, it's easy to highlight his scoring ability as he's just a natural with the ball and has a ton of craftiness around the rim, and has a really strong jumper he trusts, making him one of the best, if not the best, guard in college basketball this season.
Cam Jones, fall away 3 from the corner. Kept the dribble alive.
Nate Clifford came back to Colorado State to be the leading scorer this season, and he's put on some scoring clinics this year, including some absolutely dominant performances to close out the regular season, making a strong case for himself as a first-round pick this cycle. Currently averaging over 18 points and 10 rebounds a night on 51% from the field, Clifford has put everything together in his senior season, and now the 3 ball is falling at a great rate again on a pretty impressive volume. I think Clifford's production, two-way ability, and clear leadership on the floor will have him firmly in consideration for a first-round pick from a number of teams this offseason.
Work for the right baseline. Oh, what a pass. It's a game in those 7 games. Clifford!
LeBaron Philon's another one of my favorite players in this class to watch, and although his level of play took a hit in the middle of the year, I still think he's an incredibly exciting freshman talent. On the nights he has it, he can really be a force for Alabama, but obviously when he's cold, the tape doesn't look too great, which is why his stock has fallen for me. On top of that, there's obviously the size limitations of his build, but he's still an incredibly quick player with a great handle and scoring bag, changing pace to beat defenders in all areas, and he's still a super efficient mid-range and floater shooter. The 3-point percentage is still down, but again, I do buy the shot still. I wish we see more of a playmaking out of him, but from what we've seen, he's got good vision and instincts on simple reads, and still has a real chance of being a lottery pick if he has an impressive March run. Will Riley's stock has moved back up for me lately, coming back on strong to round out the regular season. His shooting splits are still low, but again, the age and rawness of his game are clearly behind that. We've seen the shot making on display all year, and he's had some huge scoring bursts this season. Another year in school still definitely looks like a possibility. However, I still think with his size, scoring traits, and age, he'll be someone NBA teams ask to stay in the draft and ends up a first-round selection, especially with the self-creation coming along later on in the year as well. And it does look like he's improved as a playmaker quite a bit, which should answer those questions I had earlier too.
Riley crossover dribble, takes the bump off the glass.
Hugo Gonzalez has been in the draft space for quite a while now. Scouts have really liked his athleticism on the offensive end and how hard he plays for Real Madrid. We started to see more self-creation on the offensive end lately and improved shot making with some double-digit scoring efforts for Madrid off the bench. He's a guy some like more than others, and I'm pretty split with him still, but he's had some solid production in his role as a young player in the Euro League so far, and clearly has the tools to be a good player going forward, but I don't expect any leaps to be taken for Madrid at any point this year now, and the lack of consistency from deep is really the reason why I've got him so far down on my big board in round 1 right now. Isaiah Evans is someone I thought would be for sure returning for his sophomore year in college, but some late season scoring bursts have jumped him all the way up the board at number 30 for me. Obviously, a return is still in play and maybe likely, but with his size, athleticism, and shooting ability, I'd be shocked if he didn't get some advice to make the jump now instead of waiting a year. He's been super efficient and it's an ultra green light for Duke right now, shooting the lights out to end the year. His role isn't even too big either, but he's absolutely thriving in it right now, taking Duke to a completely different level of dominant. There are some obvious questions still with his frame, defensive ability, and playmaking, but the shot right now has me excited for his future.
Well, had he not, he wouldn't have gotten the shot off because they closed hard.
Oh, Evans!
Boogie Fland is one of the best pure point guards in this draft, but unfortunately has been out for the past few months and won't return this season with an injury. However, while healthy, he was the assist leader among freshmen this season with around 6 per game, and part of the reason he's so effective as a passer is due to his ability as a scoring threat. He's a dynamic pick-and-roll ball handler, and despite a low percentage of the rim, I think he's shown some traits of a great slasher with a good mix of layups and floaters in his bag. He's got a killer mid-range and can stop on a dime to pull up and knock down shots. The downside to him is the size at just 6'2", and a pretty big slump before the injury, but again, the shot-making and passing ability makes up for the size to me, especially considering his rate to 3 ball is falling this year. Adou Thiero has come a long way since arriving at Kentucky a few years ago, and I still think there's good ways to go for him to reach the potential we saw as a recruit. He's a stellar athlete who knows how to use it to his advantage to create his own offense, and he's got great size in the wing combined with great footwork in the post, which has propelled him into being one of the deadliest inside the arc scorers in the country this year. The clear drawback, though, is the poor jumper and a lack of playmaking, and I think those concerns are what held him back to being a high-level prospect, even with a big bump in scoring this season.
Over the hands of Owe. Thiero.
Ian Jackson took a huge midseason leap for North Carolina, establishing himself as a potential first-round scoring guard, averaging 24 points a game on great efficiency across a 5 or 6 game stretch. But has been a bit up and down since then, and his stock has kind of settled in the end of the first round, early second round range. Percentage-wise, he looks great still besides the free throws. He's a dynamic scorer first guard with a lot of aggression and great handle, but not much of a playmaker, and he can get pretty turnover happy. But right now, as an off-ball shooter and rim attacker, he's been great for a freshman. But again, the versatility just isn't there to me to be a lead guard, and he hasn't shown much outside of the scoring to raise his draft stock. Maxime Reynaud is one of the best offensive big men in the country. The senior's averaging over 20 points a game and almost 11 rebounds, and has a great mix of footwork in the paint as well as a confident jumper. I think he's a better athlete than he gets credit for, and he's also shown to be a great passer out of the post. As a defensive big, he definitely can grow quite a bit, but with his size, I can see him becoming at least average enough for his offensive skill set and ability to get him drafted in early round 2.
The step back from Maxime.
Nice fake.
Reynaud going for the slam.
Drake Powell is another returning candidate for the 2026 draft after a slower year than he had hoped for, but we still see the talent on display quite a bit, especially on the defensive end. At 6'6", the freshman has a ton of hype as a future off-ball defensive wing prospect, and although it's low volume, he's still shooting 40% from deep and has a great motor on both ends of the floor, and again, defensively, projects to be an excellent piece with that effort level matching his athleticism and instincts altogether.
Pass from Mayo Jr. knocked away.
Powell to the right.
Johni Broome has been one of the best players in college basketball this season. He's an all-around big man with production in basically every category. He's putting up 2.5 blocks a night and an 18-point double-double with clear playmaking flashes out of the post. Whatever team drafts Johni Broome this cycle is going to get a complete NBA-ready player who can impact the game in a positive manner. The jumper's been improving, and despite a rough percentage, I think the comfortability he shows with it is a positive. And his current ability with the ball, interior scoring ability, and defensive presence is what makes him an early round 2 guy for me. Yaxel Lendeborg has shot up my draft board in the second half of the year as he's absolutely dominated the American Conference, putting up 17 and 11 a night for UAB. He can block shots, pick up steals, score inside the arc, rebound, and make quality passing reads all at 6'9". He does have some range in his bag, but he doesn't take too many threes, despite shooting above 30% on the year from deep. But if an NBA team believes they can expand that part of his game, his all-around game and athleticism are going to get him picked in round 2 for sure.
Yaxel down there on the block.
Alex Karaban chose to return to UConn after winning back-to-back national titles, and his play's been up and down this season, but has been good enough to keep him in the early round 2 area for me. His role is still the same despite the losses UConn suffered. As with Karaban, you're not going to get someone who's going to handle the ball or create much for others, but he's a knockdown shooter who can both spot up and shoot off movement, and he's a pretty adept finisher, making him more effective as an off-ball scorer. And although not the greatest defender, he can block shots on the perimeter and in the paint, and has good switchability at the college level as well. Alex Tui flirted with the draft process last cycle, but smartly chose to return to the NBL for another season instead of entering the draft, and this year he's been improving quite a bit. He's shown more aggressiveness, especially getting to the rim, and he's got a lot of size in the wing, which he needs to use to his advantage since the jumper hasn't been falling at a great rate. But I think the shooting is something a lot of people would think is a strength of his with some time, and I think there's a good chance I'm ranking him lower than a lot of scouts have him right now.
Course of the fever break. Here's Adams finding Tui in the corner.
Tahad Pettiford is someone I really love to watch play at the college level and would not be shocked to see return to school another year despite having a stellar freshman season for one of the best teams in the country. I think it depends on the advice he gets, but Tahad has an NBA level game to me that's just in an undersized body that makes it a little hard to see the full potential compared to some others. And another year in school could do wonders for his stock if he can prove to be one of the better players in the country next year. However, as it stands, I think he's got an incredible offensive game for his age, and it's well worth a look in this draft class right now. Flory Badunga is another guy I think has a real shot to return to school next year because of a smaller role right now at Kansas. but if he declares for the draft, I would definitely see why an NBA team would consider him with a first-round pick. He's got great athleticism and finishing ability at the rim on the offensive end, but absolutely shines as a rim protector, blocking almost 2 shots a night in just 16 minutes a game on the season. Again, doing that in an expanded role would be ideal, but if that doesn't come and he still heads to the league, he's got the anchor upside to be able to go much higher than I have him ranked right now. While not a super similar player as Badunga, I see Joan Behringer as in a similar boat as him, where the role and volume isn't high enough for me to fully buy into him as a player yet, especially considering how little he gets involved in the offensive end. He is scoring more lately, but still 4 points a game on 18 minutes is pretty clear what his role is, and that's as a defensive-minded big man, protecting the rim and switching on defense to disrupt plays. So if a team believes they can unlock some offense with him, he could go pretty high as well.
Lofted up top, Behringer!
Dink Pate is another jumbo ball handler prospect who some scouts really like. There's a lot of highs and lows of his performances, as it's still been pretty inconsistent. He just recently turned 19 and he's playing in the G League. He was on the Ignite team last year and moved over to the Mexico City team this season. As a player, his strengths right now are definitely his ability to create looks for himself, as well as his versatility due to his size and skill set as a guard. There's still a ways to go in terms of being a lead guy, creating for others and finishing at the basket, but the potential he has could be one of the higher marks in this draft class. Sergio Delaria is only 19, but playing solid basketball off the bench in the EuroLeague. His minutes are a bit up and down, as I said. He does come off the bench, but he's still a strong distributing guard for Valencia. He's been efficient as a jump shooter, shooting over 40% from 3, and pairs that with pretty high assist rate right now. He's not turning the ball over much either, which is great to see for a young guy. We'll see if he continues to develop as an initiator when he transitions to the NBA, but regardless, the high efficient play is a great sign, but unfortunately a recent injury has his stock kind of in the balance right now. Ryan Kalkbrenner is one of the most dominant bigs in all of college basketball, using his size to his advantage in the post and being really effective as a disruptor around the rim on defense. Teams shy away from the basket ends Creighton because of his presence, even though he's not the most mobile center out there. Offensively, scouts really want to see him expand his range, and he really hasn't completely, but the jumper looks way better, and he's knocked down some threes this season. But the finishing ability and skill in the post to his size is a big draw of him, and I think his dominance warrants an early second-round look for sure. JT Toppin's been a legitimate Big 12 Player of the Year candidate this year after moving on from New Mexico, where he had a stellar freshman campaign. This year, he's been phenomenal against high major competition, which has boosted his draft chances a ton. I think last year the talent was clear, but now displaying the paint scoring at a high level at just 19 is huge. He's really good in the pick and roll and has great touch in the post. The limitation for him is the 3-ball right now. The percentage is fine, but the volume is very low, so he operates mostly in the paint, where he dominates with high effort and putbacks all game long. Darion Williams is an under-the-radar prospect who I've started to really like at the college level. He's a bigger lead guard at 6'6", averaging about 4 assists a night, and plays really well in the post for a guard. He started the season in a bit of a slump from deep, but the shooting percentages are moving back up now and look pretty decent at 45 overall and 35 from deep. He's playing in a great conference as well, so as a consistent upperclassman, I expect him to be in strong consideration in round 2.
Williams will shoot a 3.
Bogoljob Markovic is someone I really have been watching a bit more lately, and from what I've seen, I get why some like him as a project pick for the NBA. He's very frail for 6'11", but it doesn't look like that'll be an area where he can't grow in, and he doesn't really use his size to score, as he's been getting buckets with spot-up jumpers, running the floor, and having great touch in the post near the basket. The mobility is a great sign with his size, and that kind of scoring versatility could make him really appealing to NBA front offices come draft night. Chaz Lanier is a leading scorer on one of the best teams in the country. The North Florida transfer made an instant impact at Tennessee, similar to how Dalton Knecht did. Knecht was definitely a better prospect and player, but Lanier has been a great addition to the season and has had a career 42% three-point percentage on over 500 attempts. And is overall just an incredible shot maker. He projects as an average-sized offensive 2-guard, and the defensive playmaking is definitely lacking, which is why he's not a first-round guy. But efficient shooters with quick releases and some athleticism aren't too common, and I think that'll draw quite a bit of interest. Tyrese Proctor's been mocked as a late first, earlier second-round pick for 3 years now, but for the most part his stock's been much lower than he wanted to be, and returning was in his best interest. And this season has been shooting his best so far, shooting 40% from 3 right now, and also a career-high 44% overall. The assist totals are down a bit, but most of that's due to the presence of Cooper Flagg, as well as how guard-heavy Duke is this season. If this is the year he comes out, I definitely see a team buying the previous creation and passing flashes we saw, with a now much improved jumper to go along with it. Jameer Watkins elected to return to school instead of entering last year's class, and I think his stock's been fairly stagnant compared to where it was last year. But his level of play this season may draw some interest from teams drafting the late first, early second area, still because of what his projected role is. He's a 6'7" wing with solid strength and a ton of athleticism who finally seems to be hitting his stride as a more consistent shooter despite, again, a lower percentage. But while he's still an up and down, I definitely see the improvement myself, and he's got a lot of value as a defender and athlete in the floor regardless. Walter Clayton Jr. is one of the most exciting players to watch in the country this season for Florida, leading a top 5 team in the country with around 17 a night on great efficiency. He's more of a score-first point guard, but he averages over 4 assists a game this season and does have a largely improved playmaking ability. But I think another area he took a big leap in this offseason was his finishing. At one time, he was shooting over 60% on twos and from the rim. At just 6'3", that's a very good sign for his ability to score at the next level beyond just shooting, and I think he definitely could get a look for an NBA team in round 2. JoJo Tugler is a great athlete and elite defensive player for Houston. His minutes aren't super high as he's a role guy for the Cougars, but even as a smaller guy, he impacts the game in such a positive manner because he blocks and disrupts everything. Offensively, there's a lot of questions of how he fits in because of his size and range limitations. It's clear shooting is not an area he's very comfortable with right now, but the defensive ability on top of being just 19 still should slot him in round 2 somewhere if he elects to declare.
Excellent instruction, Professor McClure.
Johan Grunlow is looking like a potential second-round draft and stash big man right now. He's got a quality jumper, shooting almost 36% from deep on the year while being a premier shot blocker in the German league right now. And that's allowing him to pick up big minutes playing in a league where young guys don't get a ton of run. There are some questions within the rest of his game coming around, but the pick and pop potential and defensive upside definitely have scouts interested in him.
Got to know where to go. Grunlow's made 1 3. Trying to go pick and roll.
Magoon Gwath is another freshman who could be likely to return, but might generate enough buzz from front offices to decide to stay in the draft and develop in the league instead. Because of his mix of shooting, athleticism, and shot blocking is super rare for a 7-footer, especially at 19. He's averaging nearly 3 blocks a game in under 25 minutes a night and is shooting over 30% from deep on the year. The free throw percentage isn't bad for a big man either, which could tell us the jumper's not a fluke either.
I mean, that had to be a block shot, though. Oh, boy.
Michael Ruzis was out for a big chunk of the year with an injury and slid down boards a bit because of that, but prior to the injury, he started generating a lot of buzz with his offensive ability as a big. At 6'10", he's got a lot of skill and versatility, stretching the floor while also having a nice touch around the rim, and good ball skills for his size and position. Defensively, there's some work to do, but he's a decent team defender and can use his size and length to disrupt shots on the end as well. Hunter Salas shot up draft boards last season with a breakout year after transferring to Wake Forest, but inconsistent play forced him to decide to return to school another year, and so far this season he's been producing even more, but the inconsistency is still there with the shot making and playmaking. When he's on, he generally looks the part of a first-round pick, but when he's off and forcing tough looks, you can see why he came back. And the three-point percentage being as bad as it is right now isn't doing him any favors in the eyes of scouts, I wouldn't think.
To keep the top offensive rebounder in the ACC, and off the board.
Xavier Lee has taken another step this season, and I think he's solidified himself so far as a potential draft pick. This season he's shooting in the high 30s from deep and really controlling games in the Ivy League on a consistent basis. He's also hit several huge shots in the clutch this season and is averaging a career-high 5 assists a game. And what really draws the attention to him is the handle and change of pace he can play with. He can be lightning quick on going downhill, putting pressure on a defense, but has a strong ability to play make at that pace, and it makes it so hard to stop him at the mid-major level. I personally am not very high on Rocco Zikarsky compared to some others, and his stock seems to keep dropping pretty unanimously because of his lack of playing time in the NBL. That usually doesn't bode well for the NBA future, but he does have great size at the center position, standing around 7'2". He's not the strongest though, and lacks speed and quickness to be as mobile as he needs to be right now. He does make up for it a bit though with solid defensive instincts, but the lack of aggressiveness and contact avoidance are two big reasons why he can't see the floor much in the NBL. Obviously at just 18 though, there's a ton of room for growth. Eric Dixon has also been one of the best players in the country this season, especially scoring-wise. He's currently leading the country in points per game with around 24 a night. That production alone could easily get him drafted, even with his age being a clear negative at 24 and some athletic limitations on the defensive end. He's been okay as a college defender, but doesn't block shots, so it's hard to see him impacting the game much in the NBA. But again, the jump he's made as a shooter this season should give him a shot to be selected this June.
With Brickus feeding Dixon. Got his man in the air. Dixon.
That's it for my second big board of the 2025 NBA draft class. Let me know your thoughts on the list, as well as your favorite draft prospects down below in the comments, as well as any other ideas you have for content in the future. As always, thanks for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.